TV expert to tell us what to do today. I hate relying on common sense. The Kate Daly Show starts now.
You're going to make this happen.
No. We're going to make models much cheaper than we photograph the models.
Newsrooms.
For the past 10 years, people have been looking at our fake newsreels and listening to our fake commentary.
And they accept it for the truth. And you can do it. Stop 100 people in the street. How many of them have actually sat or sat on it? That they're just told this and they believe it.
Yeah. You go Sputnik.
I mean, that's very, very...
Our first reaction. Oh, yes. Yes, it has to be relief.
You say you can put out... Doesn't anybody try to stop you?
No, nobody wants to. 99.386% of the population wouldn't believe this conversation. And the rest are working for us. And they're the top minds, the real ethical people. Scare an ostrich, buries its head in the sand. You scare itself when a woman strikes herself a hat.
You mean you scare us so that we'll buy more, so that money moves quicker, production moves up?
We don't say scare when we talk about human beings. We say threaten them emotionally. And there are all sorts of ways, not just the big ones like the hydrogen bomb. Overcrowd them a little with bad planning. Sell them too many motor cars. Anything to keep them a little bit removed from reality. Nowadays, people don't work for money. They work for the idea of money.
All right. I have more on this. Trust me on that one. Welcome. Kate Daly Show at your service. So glad to have you listening. I got to fix some audio here. You know, that's kind of how stuff works around here. What can I say? So welcome. And I can't wait to have this conversation with you today. I have so many things on my mind that, oh my gosh, they have to be addressed. They have to. And I want to share with you an excellent movie I saw and why. I'm going to share with you. This is from, you're looking at the picture. If you're looking online, you're looking at the picture of Newsbenders. This was a show back in 1968, and it came out of the BBC, and they were talking about the future. Okay. And this guy was kind of revealing all, right? This was like a fiction show. They called it a fiction show, but it has so much controversy to it that they actually ended it after one season. So, but you can see why. And I want to play with you why, because to me, this is a very interesting look at the things I've researched and the things that you've probably come across too. And there's more truth to this than I think people actually realize. There's way more truth to this. And so how they got away with this in 1968, I don't know. I know that the media was, overtaken really the end of the 40s, 50s, and Project Mockingbird. You guys remember that. And then, of course, Katharine Graham from the Washington Post, a big instigator of that, and where they exchanged out editors and journalists for people that would toe the line of the government in their stories. So they put people that were intelligent assets into positions where they would filter in their stories and pay people off to print those stories, and then basically overtook the media. But I'm going to share this with you, and then I'm going to share with you a movie I saw that I think you guys should see. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the 6 ways to spot a red coat. You're going to want... It's so good. It is so good. It's amazing, actually. Maybe I should start with that, maybe, you know what? Maybe I will. I'm going to start with the red coat because I thought this was a really good piece from Michael Bolden. I've actually had him on the air. So I'm going to go backwards. I'm going to come back to Newsbenders in just a moment. But let me add to the stage red coat, okay? Because this is a fascinating piece. And I really want to share this with you because I saw the movie The Great Awakening. This movie is about, so I'm going to start backwards today. This movie is about George Whitefield. You probably haven't heard a lot about George Whitefield because he was actually the most popular man in America around the time of Ben Franklin, around the time of the Founding Fathers, as a precursor to the Revolution. So before the American Revolution, there was a spiritual revolution. There was a spiritual change, an awakening. And that's what this movie's about. George Whitfield was a preacher. And so he was Church of England, started preaching, had this moment where he just realized that they weren't doing a very good job of teaching people, and most people were falling asleep in the sermons of the Church of England, and he didn't think that they were covering the bases, which they weren't. And so what happened is, this is George. Let me put up George. This is George Whitfield. Most popular man in America, had influence over Ben Franklin, John Adams, you name it. There's a reason that they did not talk about this guy in your history books, that they mostly stayed away from him and just centered on certain people. Okay, so this is interesting. John Adams, as a young man, heard Whitfield preach and then later wrote about the powerful impression that he made. He didn't have a personal relationship, but George had such a effect on John Adams. And then, of course, Ben Franklin. They had this relationship, this friendship, and George, obviously, Ben Franklin was printing, the printing press. And so George would come over to America and preach. And he had this strong voice, and the voice could carry to, they said, 30,000 people without obviously a microphone. They didn't have that technology. So this was a precursory to the American Revolution, because you always have to ask yourself, what happened before the revolution? Like, how did we get people to change and people to absorb, their own liberty, to understand their own liberty? Because you have to realize we came from always leaning on a king, always leading on a leader, right? You had to have a leader. And so the king was sort of put into this, I am guided by my king gets to determine my life, my status in society determines my life. And liberty was not given of God. The liberties you got were given from a king. So it's very, very fascinating to look back on history, because we talk about the war. We talk about the American Revolution, but we don't actually cover what happened before that. This movie, The Great Awakening, oh my gosh, it's in very limited theaters. There's been no fanfare about it. It's from the same people that did the story about Heard the Bells, the song, The Bells. It is not getting any press at all, but it has a 97% audience rate, because you walk out feeling inspired. If there was ever a movie I wanted you to see, this is it. If there was ever a movie to bring your kids to, this is it. George Whitfield went around and preached liberty from God, and preached people into believing in Christ, understanding what the real intention of the Gospels, the Bible. I mean, really took it to heart and was very, very inspirational. And this is interesting, but there was a statue erected of him. I think it was the University of Pennsylvania. And what's fascinating about this is that they did this statue of him. I think he died around 60 years old. But he owned the building that later became the college. Okay. And so they erected a statue of him, right? They took the statue down under Biden in 2020. And no, not under Biden, actually, in 2020, under Trump. They actually took his statue down. And this is kind of fascinating for the reason. The reason was because he was a preacher. And of course, if you're preaching God, the people at the university said that wasn't inclusive enough. You're not inclusive. Yeah. He's teaching, you're all God's children equally under the law, but it's not inclusive enough. Okay. So and also he's racist, even though he was the one that was out there and preaching against racism. He was actually preaching against slavery at the time, and where it was a mindset in the world. But I thought it was fascinating that they actually took his statue down, and there's only one statue of him. They took it down successfully, because they figured that how in the world could they put up a Christian preacher and have that statue stand in America? Can you believe this? Can you believe this? It's amazing. It's sickening. It's sickening. So anyway, so this movie, The Great Awakening, is about George Whitefield. It's about his what happens to him, the transformation, how he transformed himself, and how he became the speaker. Like I said, most popular man in America at the time. Everyone knew him. People would travel so far to be able to hear him. And he did nothing but ride his horse and get to every place you could imagine. He preached in every single city, every big city in America. He was the transformation for people understanding their own liberty, grasping their own liberty, and then realizing that it came from God and that we should be in charge of our own government, okay? Because that mindset had to happen. You had a mindset of people that were still Tories. They were still redcoats. They were still people who believed the king should hold the power and the cards and dictate what your life looks like. So I thought this was really, really fascinating. The movie leaves you inspired to do more. And I believe in that. I believe in leaving a movie that says, that you can actually feel the spirit in it. You can actually feel something in and go, if one man could transform people, then you can. You possibly can. You can do it. Because I know it feels like you're not making a dent. I know you feel like I can't even get through to anybody, but that's not the case. So the reason I wanted you to know about this movie, The Great Awakening, please buy it when it becomes available. Search for it because it's not going to come up on your home screen of your Roku. I promise you that. It's like they have to keep these movies away from everybody. So get the movie, buy it, and make sure your family, your grandkids, everyone around you sees it. Okay. So I wanted to bring this up because I thought that this was such a great piece. And I really loved this from Michael Bolton. I'm sorry, not Michael Bolton singer, Michael Bolton. So this is 6 ways to spot a modern day redcoat. And I want to go through this with you for just a second because it was that good. And it's going to leave you with a different kind of understanding of that time. Here we are on the 250th birthday of America. And, I see the cities, I see the attempts to try to make people feel aligned with the Constitution and the Revolution. And they're all whores. They've done nothing but abuse it. So I don't have much faith in local governments. But I'll tell you, so it's kind of funny to watch them try to align themselves with anything constitutional. But this piece was so good and it was just published. And so I wanted to bring this to your attention from the 10th Amendment Center. We've had so many guests on the show over the years from the 10th Amendment Center. But it says, we're surrounded by redcoats and they might not be part of King George's military. Not George Whitefield, the other King George, and what they're willing to impose. The founders didn't just fight an army, they fought a long, bloody war to secede from a system built on a set of views considered as a fate worse than death. So loyalty was the biggest thing. Now, what they're saying here is loyalty, the quickest way to spot a redcoat is to question, where does your loyalty lie? Loyalty to a single person isn't patriotism, okay? Let me say that again. Loyalty to a single person isn't patriotism. So what have we done in this country? What have we done in this country? We make it all about the president all the time. A singular person, right? Bush, Obama, right? Trump, Biden, Trump, okay? It's always about the one guy. All right. So he goes on to say it's a complete rejection of the American Revolution because decades before the War for Independence, Samuel Adams already warned about this. He said, it is a very great mistake to imagine the object of loyalty is the authority and interest of one individual man. However, dignified by the applause or enriched by the success of popular actions. So John Adams knew that this, as a student of history, that loyalty to one man, like a king, right, would be a tyranny. Now, in our day and age, we have the leftists, and they're having these asinine king's protest, which are seriously the most asinine thing I've come across in a long time, because they're not doing it for the right reason. They're not doing it for the right reason. And they're not even doing it for really a reason, just to be told what to think. But it is so funny how they're trying to get that message out there, but it isn't. Their message is a strange message. I can't talk today. But this is, John Adams went on to say, this has led millions into such a degree of dependence and submission that they have at length found themselves obliged to the instruments of their ruin, and at the very time they were at work to effect it. So he knew that if we got into a mentality, and I say in this day and age, we are guided to only talk about one man. We are guided to only talk about Trump today. And I always say, it's not about Trump. It's about the deep state that's running the government. So it isn't about Trump. It isn't about that. But we keep getting sucked into the conversation. And now there's a little war going on for Trump loyalists. Okay. So you have Tucker, Candace, you have all of these guys that are coming out and they're just going after Trump hard. Then you have the MAGA enthusiasts. I hate going by these words, but I know you'll know what I'm talking about. You have the MAGA enthusiasts that say Trump isn't doing anything wrong and he's got a game plan, just be patient, and he's doing exactly what's right without question. Okay. So you have these two different sets of people in the Republican Party. I'm a conservative. So it's getting interesting because I see this little war going on, and what are they warring about? This is very important. What are they warring about? They're saying Trump is deceiving you, right? They're saying Trump he's the villain, he's evil, he is the one, okay? So now I've got a news feed on Facebook, and half the people that I follow or that talk like me or get out there in the media, they're either on one side or the other now, okay? And here's the message. It isn't about Trump. It isn't about him. It's about the deep state. Talk about the deep state, okay? The loyalty should be to the principles of our Constitution. That's where your loyalty should lie. The deep state is what needs to be pointed out continuously as to running things, okay? And I'm going to talk about that in just a minute when I play Newsbender's clip for you, because, oh my gosh, it's insane what they were saying in 1968, okay? 57 years ago. So he talks about loyalty, and he says, look, you're in the wrong if what you're about is all loyalty to one person and you're not looking at what they're doing and comparing it to principles, okay? Which he's right. It wouldn't matter who's in office right now. You'd have to take it apart and say, is this running to the principles? Is this being run by principles to the Constitution? Are we getting rid of government? Are we doing all those things? Okay. Then it goes into arbitrary power. This is how you identify a redcoat. Okay. So Samuel Adams warned that liberty can't exist where government does what it wants. It can't indeed subsist in an arbitrary government. That's the second way to spot a redcoat. They support violating the Constitution. The founders called that arbitrary power. So James Otis Jr. Basically said this. He said, defined it in this way: arbitrary, which in plain English means no more than to do as one pleases. Okay. John Adams warned that you have to stop it early, the moment you see it, not later. Nip the shoots of arbitrary power in the bud, which is the only maxim which can ever preserve the liberties of any people. So because once you give in, it's like a deadly disease and it's game over. So when the people give way, their deceivers, betrayers, and destroyers press upon them so fast that there is no resisting afterwards. And that is true. That is true. I'm one of the few in my own area that warns against the people doing what they're doing, because I will tell you this: the news media in every city in America now is wired to kiss the rear ends of politicians. They are, they will not point out. So I know people think still that the media is going to point out what these politicians are doing wrong. They don't. They won't. They won't. they will kiss rear. So they will kiss the buttocks of these politicians like you can't believe. So you're never going to get the true story about what they're doing unless you listen to people that have nothing to lose, that expose them. Me. And then also the people that the whistleblowers or the people actually doing their own research. Okay. And looking into it and comparing their records. Okay. That's how you're going to stop that. Here's the next one, emergency power. You guys have seen a lot of this. They make excuses for arbitrary power. And John Milton gave us one of the most common one. He said, it's an emergency. Remember how I said emergency is being used for everything. Emergency for COVID, lockdowns, right? Violation of liberty. Emergency to take our voting, right? Our elections, commandeer the software under national emergency so that you can't find out more about it. You can't do a lot of research on it now. So in 2004, they commandeered the software and put it under national emergency. Works quite well for them. Also FEMA, always in an emergency. Okay. So Samuel Adams put it, when people with power get to decide if they have extra power or funding for an emergency, you'll end up with never ending emergencies. War in Iran. Was there something that was the precursor to that? No. Okay. We're still trying to find out why. Still no answers whatsoever. So, always done on emergency, but we have to bomb. We have to go in. We have to do this. Okay. Then also, this is what was said by Samuel Adams. He said, those kings, and I quote, by the way, being the sole judges when emergencies happen, they generally create them as often as they want money. Truth. Okay. So Federal Farmer argued that even when the decision is left to the people, the trick is still the same. It's always do or die right now. Manufacture urgency, slam the door on scrutiny, and hope nobody looks too closely at what's being pushed through. And I quote, it is natural for man who wish to hasten the adoption of a measure to tell us now is the crisis. Now is the critical moment which should be seized, for all will be lost, and to shut the door against free inquiry. Whenever conscious, the thing presented has defects in it, which time and investigation will probably discover. Look a little closer, you're going to find out. This has been the custom of tyrants and their dependents in all ages. And again, it isn't about Trump. Trump's just the person they stick out in front. It's about the deep state. The deep state is the tyrant. The deep state acts as the king. They just want your eyeballs on Trump. That's where they want your eyes. They want you to debate him. They want you to pick apart what he's doing. They want you to complain about what he's saying. They want you to say he has mental instability. They want you to basically tear him apart. And that's why you're seeing the pundits on the right tear him apart or worship and praise, and then go after anyone that tears him apart. Because what happens? Because the conversation you're having is about his behavior, what he's saying, and not about what the deep state's doing, not how they're utilizing him. Big difference. Okay. But this is how you spot a red coat. A red coat is somebody that just ignores all of this. All right. So, yeah, I mean, it's amazing. So here's another one. Who decides? All right. So because of this, the founders and the old revolutionaries like Samuel Adams and James Otis Jr. insisted on strict and fixed limits on government power. And they said, in all free states, the Constitution is fixed, right? It's a contract, okay? It's fixed. It's like you can't go change your mortgage contract. It's fixed, okay? Your mortgage company can't change your contract. It's a contract. Okay, so the Constitution is fixed. And as the supreme legislative derives its power and authority from the Constitution, it cannot overleap the bounds of it without destroying its own foundation. The chain of command, Thomas Paine wrote, goes like this: the people first, then the Constitution, and government at the bottom. Let me say that again. People first, smart people, then Constitution, and then government at the bottom. And I quote, a constitution is not an act of government, but of a people constituting a government. Okay? A constitution is not the act of a government, but of the people constituting a government. And who decides when the Constitution is violated? All right. On this, spotting a redcoat is easy, says Michael Bolden. They believe government gets to judge the limits of its own power. I have a liner coming into the show and it says, the government has looked into itself and declared itself innocent. True. That happens a lot. So the government created by this compact was not made the exclusive or final judge of the extent of the powers delegated to itself, since that would have made its discretion and not the Constitution the measure of its powers. Okay? So this came out of 1798, this Kentucky Resolution, Thomas Jefferson. Let me say it one more time. The government created by this compact or contract, okay, was not made the exclusive or final judge to the extent of its own powers delegated to itself. The government cannot judge itself, since that would have made its discretion and not the Constitution the measure of its powers. Jefferson applied the same principle at the height of the Revolution, referring to a whole list of British acts as nullities and void. And he said the true ground on which we declare these acts void is that the British Parliament has no right to exercise authority over us. The people don't get to decide what's void if the government is the top of the food chain. You know what I thought about? I know that there's a lot of people out there that look at liberty and they teach liberty through the eyes of this is how you churn butter, or this is how you do something in the late 1700s, or here's the signing of the Constitution. Isn't it grand? Look at everybody signing it. But they're not teaching the values that we're taught. They're not teaching how government is not supposed to judge itself. They're not supposed to have their own secret courts. They're not supposed to have their own banks. They're not supposed to have their own judgment. They're not supposed to be able to hire their own third party to come in and judge what they're doing. They're not allowed to do that. But we don't teach that. We don't, what would be really helpful is if you were going to teach the Constitution to kids, take the records of your local politicians and your state politicians. And then as you take those records, say, is this constitutional? Is this constitutional? What they did here when they said they wanted this law passed or this ordinance passed or this regulation passed, is that constitutional? Let's go back to the Constitution and line it up. Okay. Now, here's the problem with doing that. I know you've thought of this. The problem is that the government itself pays for these celebrations to celebrate, like, say, 250 years. Okay. So if the government's paying for it, then the government doesn't want its own being revealed. Does that make sense? They don't want the people being revealed. If you were honest, right? If our government was honest, they would be putting out their records 24/7 so that everybody knew everything they voted on, why they voted on it, why they gave a blank yes to budgets, why they did what they did, the governor all the way down to all the different states. Okay. But they don't do that because they don't want you to look. They only want you to look on the surface. And that's good enough, right? Look at the fireworks. Aren't we having fun? Go get a snow cone. Let's celebrate 250 years. But hey, buddy, don't look below the surface. And all the government that's always there to pay for the fireworks and pay for the big show, don't look at what they're doing. Shh. It constantly amazes me. Truly. It's like the beacon of hypocrisy. Okay. And hiding. So here's another one. All right. Standing armies. By the way, I got a copper bottle. Yeah. If you drink from a copper bottle, your drinks, make sure they're not lined. Make sure that you're actually getting the copper. Okay. Very, very important mineral that was taken out of our food supply in the 1930s. Okay. Causing a lot of disease right now that we don't have enough copper. All right. By the way, go order copper at FIQ. FIQ has the best one. It's on my website, katedalleyradio.com. Okay. So here's standing armies. This is the next way to spot a redcoat, and it's the favorite. Okay, this is the favorite one, standing armies, because when they use arbitrary power, this power that's unchecked, government has to, well, they need the military to enforce it. This is why you see the military at every sporting event. We're always bringing the military into events that really have nothing to do with the military. Have you guys noticed that? I don't have a huge problem with it per se. It's not my hill to die on. I know a lot of libertarians do not like this at all. It's not the biggest deal to me, but it is intriguing to me because the act of like bringing in the military to everything, to make it a part of everything, right? That we do is kind of strange. It is kind of weird. Especially sporting events. You know, we do the flyovers and everything. It's kind of weird if you take it apart and really analyze it. But let's go back to standing armies. This is really, really, really important. So they have to have the military enforce it. So the American view is the exact opposite, and few captured it better than Joseph Warren. He doesn't get talked about a lot. Standing armies have absolutely been terrible all throughout history, right? So the ruinous consequences of standing armies to free communities may be seen in the histories of Syracuse, Rome, and many other flourishing states, some of which now have scarce a name. George Mason made it really clear that there is no special exemption for America. A standing army is a threat to liberty wherever and anywhere and everywhere it exists. When once a standing army is established in any country, the people lose their liberty. It's a given. So when you understand history from the ancient world to the streets of Boston now, you understand their warning, because this is why the founding generation so vehemently opposed standing armies. And as General Henry Knox explained, the danger was greatest in times of peace. Whatever may be the efficacy of standing army in war, it cannot in peace be considered as friendly to the rights of human nature. Okay. Now, here's the final one. This is very, very interesting. Obedience. Okay. Obedience. The most obvious ways to start to spot a redcoat in your midst. Okay. They demand obedience. No one summed up the total American rejection of that view better than James Otis Jr. Here we go. I'm going to quote. He that would palm the doctrine of unlimited passive obedience and non-resistance upon mankind is not only a fool and a knave, but a rebel against common sense, as well as the laws of God, of nature, and his country. Compliance with arbitrary power, that's power unchecked, okay, as John Dickinson wrote, sets the precedent and guarantees total tyranny. If you quietly bend your necks to that yoke, you prove yourselves ready to receive any bondage to which your lords and masters shall please to subject you. John Adams recorded exactly what the American response to the Stamp Act was, okay? Even in the face of overwhelming power, compliance was a non-starter. And he said the cry was, if Parliament can tax us, okay, we are undone forever in soul, body, and estate. They can give us what religion and government they please and do what they will with our property, persons, and consciences. Resistance to the last extremity at whatever risk must be made, okay? At whatever risk must be made. Now that you know these 6 ways to spot a redcoat, it's even easier to spot a real American, okay? According to Samuel Adams, they're the ones doing the complete opposite. The truth is, all might be free if they valued freedom and defended it as they ought to. Like I said, you're not going to go to any 250 year celebration of our Constitution and be able to look and see your government that's paying for the festivities, what they're up to. They're going to make it very, very fun and fireworks and cotton candy, but nothing about how far we've strayed, sadly. And also, you know, one of the things that that was talked about too was the dependence and submission on a party. This was a big thing, and I kind of glossed over this when I was first going over these. And this was the first one because it's all about the party loyalty being the most dangerous of all. And Noah Webster said, nothing is more dangerous to the cause and truth of liberty than a party spirit. The women in their little vagina hats, and then of course you have the MAGA, which is the other sort of extreme. It's weird. It's like we've just lost our critical thinking mechanism, and people are just sucked into the party mentality. So basically, they said, John Adams warned against it. Noah Webster warned against it. And of course, loyalty to a person, a party, or even a nation, that's a red coat. Now, in my state, I have to be part of a party in order to vote. So I've always been a Republican since day one, right? Republican. My parents were conservative. I'm a conservative. And then seeing the party through the eyes of somebody that does research in the last 16 years, I can tell you, it's so dangerous. It's so dangerous. The tribal monsters, I call them, the tribal monsters, that it's just like party. They don't even look at the results of what happens. As long as their party wins, it doesn't matter. It should, because all you have to do is do a little homework and it's going to matter, because they're not going to do the things they say. But the platforms sound great until you get into what actually happens. So just kind of making that point, that they really pointed out that our attachment to no nation upon earth should supplant our attachment to liberty. When George Whitefield was out there preaching as the precursor to the revolution, it was all about you're not subject to anybody. You don't need to align to anybody but Christ. You don't need to become a party rat. You don't need to do all of these extracurricular things. What you need to do is understand your own liberty and then have loyalty to that. And that whatever comes between you and your own liberty should be important enough to really examine. And I really love this. I thought this was great. So, all right. That was Michael Boldin. You can check that piece out at the 10th Amendment Center. I suggest that you share it because I think the piece was so good. I mean, really. Okay, so let's go to the Newsbenders clip. This was a show in 1968. The creator of this show was named Donald Churchill. This only lasted one season. According to all the things I've researched and plowed in over 38,000 hours, I can tell you that many of these things said, I think, are very true. And, the deep state likes to put out what they're doing, but they don't want people to get too smart, but they do like to tell us what's happening. He actually died suddenly of a heart attack at 60 years old. The creator of this clip I'm going to play for you, he actually died. He was filming a show called LCID. And this show was in 1990, and it was all about a CID officer who takes early retirement, moves to Spain, where he and his partner, Douglas Bromley, retired records officer, keep an eye on an expat community of British gangsters. And there was a huge amount of controversy about this because it highly publicized the criticism of Spain's extradition treaty with the UK. And then, of course, he suddenly dies of a heart attack. Healthy guy. Donald Churchill died at the age of 60. He was the creator of this show. So let me play this clip for you because this is very intriguing. This is a deep state guy having a conversation with somebody that's coming into media, okay, where he's trying to buy this person, okay? Here you go.
I mean, when did it all start?
1945. You may remember the Americans let off their 2 atomic bombs. Well, they didn't want other people doing the same thing. I mean, you do see that, don't you?
Oh, I don't know.
Scare the people off. The Americans put it out, and the atomic bomb was halfway along the line to something much bigger, the hydrogen bomb. It didn't work. They spent 5 years in negative research.
Well, what about the Russians? They're supposed to have quite a pile of these things.
We were surprised when they started their tests. Then we got a few feelers from their Secret Service. Nowadays, we work very closely together. Oh, all these stories about spies going off to Russia. Mr. Philby, remember? Just good copy for the Sunday papers.
Good copy. Well, the Chinese. I mean, They've just announced their bomb.
Yeah, we played along with it. We recorded their phony explosion. We're rather hoping the Chinese will come along, complete the pattern, you know.
In Vietnam, hundreds of people are being killed every week. Well, you can't do that with your models.
No. And you can't cure people of bad habits in 2 generations. They like to carry rifles. They like to put lines on maps. And we let them because we control the situation. There's no danger of world war. Just a simple choice for everybody. Capitalism or communism. Strawberry or vanilla. It all adds up to the same thing now we've got rid of the big bangers.
But how can you be sure that Johnson, Kosygin aren't working on other things? Poison gases, bacteria.
Pathetic man of your intelligence. You don't want to destroy the world, neither do I. What makes you think that presidents are different?
Well, they've made some pretty good stabs at it in the past.
It wasn't the right sort of control then. Nowadays we know better. Politicians are easy to control. The grosser mentality boys who like to be photographed getting in and out of Daimlers in Whitehall. They come right at the bottom of our organization. A few rungs up the ladder, there are the people in the top secret factories. Just those in a position to know they're making weapons that don't really work.
Well, there must come a time when somebody wants to use one of those weapons. I mean, somebody is standing there with a finger on the button.
Well, that's the beauty of it. Nobody presses the button.
Isn't that interesting? Nobody presses the button. You know, I've said this for, a number, I think a couple of years at least, where I said I really highly doubt that your finger on the button is the button that actually sends what we think it's going to send. Why do I think that? Because for over 70 years, they've used the fear of it to take away all our liberty. You know, it's funny. I'm getting a lot of comments on Facebook, and a lot of them are like, they hate Trump, right? They hate Trump, blah, blah, blah. It's not about Trump. If you're debating Trump, you're brainwashed. Okay? They want you to debate Obama, Biden, Trump. They want you to debate these people. They want you to hate them or love them. It's not about that. Look beyond that. Okay? If you find yourself hating on Trump, you're as brainwashed as people can be. Okay? It isn't about that. They're merely the puppetry that they stand out in front. Okay? The deep state's running stuff. Trump and Biden and Obama and Bush didn't run a thing. They don't run a thing. This is all decided by the people behind the White House. Nothing happens unless they're told to. So this whole big controversy about Trump and that Trump's latest move, it's the deep state's latest move. You got to get yourself out of the brainwashing. All right. Tells me volumes about you if you say, if you're just hating on Trump, it's ridiculous. Okay. Let me keep going with this clip because he's basically saying they're lying about the bombs. They're lying about basically everything to you. Okay, here we go.
The beauty of it, nobody presses the button. We control all the crises. We build them up and we shut them down.
We. Again.
Yeah, I'm coming to that. Near the top of the hierarchy, there are the economists, top civil servants, top brass in the military. Those men who are supposed to view the nuclear tests and so on. And above them, CWNS.
Right at the top. Classified World News Service. Just who the hell are you?
It's obvious, isn't it? Just a very few of the top people in communications in every major country in the world.
Oh, you mean you run all these magazines?
No, of course not. We just get them to take some of our copy every week. Television is much more important to us. All happens so quickly.
You say you can put out what pictures you like on television. Doesn't anybody try to stop you?
No, nobody wants to. 99.386% of the population wouldn't believe this conversation. And the rest are working for us. And they're the top minds, the really responsible people. They know they're guaranteeing the lives of their grandchildren the only foolproof way.
Scaring the hell out of their grandchildren. Well, I won't buy it.
You must admit there has to be some kind of control in this world of ours. Look at that. And remember that 1/4 of the world is starving. There are the full bellies and the empty bellies. Some of the empty One of them is this fictitious hydrogen bomb we've talked about. The other one is money. Enough money to fill some of the empty bellies and put a hopeful smile on the faces of the others. A great wall of money all around Britain. And it's no secret that the British economy is in trouble at the moment. So we have to put that right, too, to stay alive. We have to control the people in this country. Scare an ostrich, buries its head in the sand. If you scare a hedgehog, it rolls itself up into a ball. When a woman's frightened, she goes out and buys herself a hat.
You mean you scare us so that we'll buy more, so that money moves quicker, production moves up?
We don't say scare when we talk about human beings. We say threaten them emotionally. And there are all sorts of ways of not just the big ones like the hydrogen bomb. Overcrowd them a little with bad planning. Sell them too many motor cars. Anything to keep them a little bit removed from reality. Nowadays, people don't work for money. They work for the idea of money. They don't even love for love. They love for the idea of love. They only hate for the idea of hate. It took us 5 years to find a non-addictive drug, one we could pay off against the hard drugs. LSD.
You marketed that?
Oh, yes, of course. And for a very good reason. Some of these protest movements were getting a little bit too close to the mark. LSD gave them nice little hallucinations. Made them talk like 3-year-olds. Throw flowers at policemen. Shall we talk terms?
You're not still going to ask me to work for you?
I'm afraid I've had to put all this rather bluntly. You see, there wasn't really very much time. It must be rather a shock. Well, I mean, most people realize that the world is controlled from about 6 big cities. But it must be rather shocking to learn that a sixth of the world is controlled from this building.
You mean you?
Oh, no. I only rate an office on the 7th floor. There are 2 other offices above this one. And a giant computer system. Link number 4 in world control.
A computer?
Well, what's so remarkable about that? It's just a machine that can store a vast amount of information.
A machine that knows too bloody much.
Now you're being hysterical about it. The computer's very simple. You feed data into it. Anything from the Wall Street closing prices to the North Atlantic weather report.
And you get decisions. That machine's taken you over.
It's just a machine. Extra hands for the people who know how to control it.
Well, this one above us, it's square in a box.
Yeah, I suppose you could call it square in a sort of a box.
You know why I go away at weekends? To get away from people in boxes. They live in boxes. They get their thoughts, their problems, and their answers out of boxes. And I like to get away at weekends because they're not people anymore. Now, you know all about me. My cottage in Hampshire. But did you know that there's a line of trees that goes right up past the house? And the noise they make is like the sea. Did you know that I find it difficult to sleep in the country? And I like to go and stand in the garden before dawn. And I feel good because I know that my wife and my children are asleep inside. And I like to go out and walk past the wet hedgerows until I can see pasture land and the smoke from the cottages in the village.
This may be all very well for one of your grassroots programs, but I'm afraid time is running out. I ought to tell you, we pay a great deal of money. We can afford to. We save such a lot on things like the national defense budget and so on. We would start you off at £250,000 a year.
No.
Rising to $1 million when you make the Ministry of Morality, which I know you will.
Will you let me out of here?
One little point. I should have told you about these surgical transmitters. There's enough of this stuff inside you at this moment to kill 6 people. There's a button we can press. I'm sorry about the dramatics. Our boys call these things the oral contraceptive. Keeps them from talking too much.
So there must be one of those transmitters inside you. Who presses the button? Extra hands. All this stuff about the computer being extra hands for the men who know how to control it. That machine controls you.
You start on Monday.
You start on Monday. Before this, in this like 30-minute show, the Newsbenders, this played in 1968. Only one season of it, and it was canceled by the BBC. It talked about the moon landing. Everything that they were doing in space wasn't real, and that it was basically central casting, and that the bombs that we talked about so fiercely in the press, and the finger on the button of the bomb wasn't real. We've talked about that on the show because people were very skeptical going over to Hiroshima and saying, this wasn't a bomb. There's no way. This was just your normal average bombing, that our planes do all the time. This was not what they're saying it is. And so very interesting show. And I urge you to check it out because so much was said. They were talking about the big computer system, and that I've done shows about Aladdin, BlackRock's creation back in 1998. Aladdin began on a single workstation from Sun Microsystems. Isn't it interesting that they called it Sun Microsystems? But anyway, it was one of BlackRock's 4 data centers where Aladdin is operated in Washington State. This system now basically runs the world, this Aladdin system. It's never talked about. It is never talked about. So you might want to look into that. It's very interesting what we have done with this. The Bank of Israel has used Aladdin since 2019. Basically, the Lehman Brothers, you name it, all under the Aladdin system, Deutsche Bank, Prudential, so many entities under Aladdin. It basically runs things. So I'm mentioning that because this was clear back in 1968. Okay. And there's a couple things that I have brought up from the late 60s on this show that really showcase what was to come, like things that were going to come. I don't always believe everything. I'm very critical, actually, of even things on the right that are said. Some of the scary clips and things like that. I really scrutinize. But let me just tell you what was said in this Newsbender show were the things that I have found doing independent research before I ever heard these guys say this. And when that happens, you kind of go, wow, that's kind of baffling. I mean, come on. Very, very interesting. WAG, the moon doggy, is a great piece on the moon because it goes through the whole moon landing piece by piece, and it shows you the proof. It kind of shows you what's going on there. So there's lots of things that I think we've been swept up into thinking because in the show earlier in this episode, he said, things are so far away and the average person isn't going to go into space. The average person isn't going to do all these things. So therefore, it's very easy to lie to them because you can get them to believe, you can get the populace to believe about anything. And that they only project about a year out on their headlines, a year at a time. And that the people, it doesn't have to take a ton of people to sell a lie. It just takes a few at the top because the people even working on the weapons, we talked about this last week, the people even working on the weapons systems think that they work. But what if they don't? Those people working on the moon landing, they thought it was working, right? What if it wasn't? What if it didn't? What if it didn't really happen? It's funny because people think because there were people in a room creating it, that therefore it had to be. Well, that's not necessarily true. So when we go to the brainwashing of Americans, and we're talking about people around the world, and we're talking about, I'm talking about the birth date of 250 years. Are we following the Constitution? And I'm talking about the level of party, tribal weirdness in this country. They always tell us we're split in two. We're divided. We all hate each other. That's not true. Go anywhere. I defy you to give me instances where all across the nation, people are at each other's throats right now. Okay. And I've said these things before, but I just in light of watching the Great Awakening movie, which you guys should all see, you should have your kids watch it. You should watch it several times. It's all about the spiritual revolution that caused the American Revolution, which is never talked about. Our kids don't hear about it in school. They only hear about Benjamin Franklin. They only hear about certain people, but they don't hear about that. And George Whitefield had an enormous impact on Ben Franklin, who was a deist. And by the end, they had Ben Franklin talking at the convention. And he, in the late 1700s, and he was talking, he led the congressman into, hey, why don't we pray every morning to get answers? Because I believe in divine miracles. Why don't we pray about it? And it really was a game changer, because up to that point, they were having a hard time deciding what this Constitution was going to say, how it was going to define for the future of us, to define how we limited our government and to define the role that government was going to have in our lives. Like I said, government was going to be at the bottom rung, right? So very interesting now, as I'm looking around and I'm seeing so many brainwashed folks, even folks commenting here right on YouTube. It's so funny to me. It's like they're in this love or hate thing that they've gotten from the media. This love or hate thing that the actors of central casting in government have caused us to reflect on daily, the drama, the Days of Our Lives soap opera, and not really gotten to the point where they understand that none of these people are running a thing. I really don't think so. I think that the people that actually run the show are the ones we don't talk about, the ones whose names aren't mentioned, the groups that meet and decide our foreign policy. The president doesn't decide that, so very, very interesting. I will take some phone calls on this. Hi, caller. Welcome to the show. Go right ahead.
Yeah, let me turn you off here.
Sure.
Okay. I'm so glad you took my call.
Yeah.
This hate Trump, love Trump. This is all a straw man argument.
Mm-hmm.
What we're trying to do is judge everybody. Bolden's presentation was excellent. Thank you for presenting that on those 6 redcoats and citing all those founding fathers. They never gave an exemption, immunity to a particular president or all presidents, whether there's a conspiracy behind them or not.
Mm-hmm.
They're all what we're doing. The false flag here about hate Trump. We're asking for justice.
Mm-hmm.
We're asking for him to be judged by those standards that you cited in your presentation: the God's law, the Constitution, the principles, ideology of liberty. We're asking all of them. Now, this is extremely important. What I'm going to say, you've done a great job promoting liberty over the years, but you've come up with a scheme that is one of the greatest gifts you could give the grand conspiracy if people followed it. And it's an ideal. Let's classify the conspirators in 2 groups. One is the ones executing the conspiracy, the politicians and everybody in out front. And then the conspirators behind the scenes are calling the shots. They're giving the orders.
Right.
So we have 2 groups now. There's really 3 groups, because there's some that are probably carrying out the orders that are also giving the orders. Now, you can't to say that the ones executing the orders are immune from justice, from prosecution and so forth, is the greatest gift you could give the ones behind the scenes.
Oh, nobody has said that people shouldn't be.
You have to go after all of them. The way you get to the conspiracy, the ones behind the scenes, you have to expose the people out front, and then find out who's directing them. But you don't give immunity to the presidents of the United States. You don't give immunity. Like you said, you judge local government, state government by these standards. You also judge it's a federal government,
Yes,
and they're
I
people by
agree
the
with
same
you.
standards.
I agree
By
with
those
you.
same standards, they're all
Nobody's
traitors.
getting immunity here. No one's getting immunity. Why did you think somebody was getting immunity?
No, you're saying that we can't judge. See, you're calling it hate when we're saying we judge the president by these same standards.
You're not understanding what I'm saying then. So what I'm saying is
Yeah,
when
go ahead.
people get caught up and they turn what's happening to us via the government into into an argument about personality and about the person themselves, which are just merely puppets. When they
Yes,
turn
but
it
I'm
into
saying
that,
this, and many
yeah.
of the people that are critical of the president are doing the same thing. They're not into personality. It's not personality, it's personage. But they're not talking about the person. They're talking about these evils, these injustices,
But-
the murder,
but they are
the
talking
destroying
about a
of our
person.
economy, the looting of our the person, of the American people, the tens of thousands being killed by the one person.
Right.
We're judging it by the standards. We're not talking about personality
Okay.
or
Thank
personage.
you. No, thank you. I'm gonna actually talk about this off of this call. Okay. I'm talking about the ones that turn it into Trump said this about Iran. Trump said that about Iran. Trump said this about this bombing. Trump said that about this bombing. Trump's doing this today. Trump is doing this tomorrow. Okay. Trump said this in his speech. Trump said, didn't say this in his speech. Okay. They make it all about him. No one's getting immunity here. Okay. No one. What I'm trying to say is when people start saying, hey, the people that are actually running the show just did this today, and the people actually running the show want this conflict with Iran and want to shove it down our throats that the strait is closed again, even though we only get 10% of our oil through the strait. So basically making it something that is the reason for the economy right now, the bad economy that I don't think is going to get better. So if people were actually calling it out normally and saying the deep state's doing this, the deep state's doing that, and for this reason, but they're not. I see a lot of people in my position in media, and it's always about the way Trump said something, the callous way in which he said this, or this tweet, or this message, or what he said about civilization. That is all fodder for us to get caught up in, and so that we don't talk about who's actually running the show, so that we don't identify it. If I actually heard people identify the deep state and say they're running the show and this is why they're doing what they're doing, I would applaud. And it doesn't mean Trump has immunity. It doesn't mean any of that. Okay. Biden has no immunity. None of them have immunity. The congressmen, the willing governors, the bought and paid for governors like my own in Utah, all of the people that work all the way down to local government. There's no immunity for what they're doing. A lot of them are basically stupid. And I don't mean to be mean. They're just basically stupid. They don't realize that they're being used. Okay. And that the way things are done are coming from on high, right? They're coming from not God, but coming from higher government. So, and then when you get to the highest level of government, there are people running that show. So if you want to identify that, then great. Identify that. It has nothing to do with Trump. When I see people caught up in Trump, I'm like, you're not seeing it. You're not seeing it. It's like this. I go to a wrestling match and I'm like, oh, that guy versus that guy. Well, that guy said this. And then this guy walked around the ring like he owned it. And then this guy said that. I'm caught up in thinking that it's real. Okay. I'm looking around me. Everyone else thinks it's real. I'm caught up in the hype and I'm thinking that these two guys are really fighting. And I'm thinking in this wrestling match that these two guys are really going at it and someone's going to win. Okay. I haven't seen it yet. Now, when I rise above this wrestling match and I really see it for what it is, I sit back and I'm just bowled over because I realize that this whole entire crowd is into this fight as if it's real. But I'm looking at it and I'm saying, it isn't real. It's a show. It's scripted. It's being run. I hope that makes sense. Okay. I hope that makes sense because it's like, get above the situation, get above it so you can see it. who's really running things. That way, when people start to identify who's really running things, they don't fall for every single little thing that's done by the puppetry. Right now, everyone's falling for it. It's like most people are. It's like they fall for it and they get all upset about what Trump said. I'm like, who cares? That's fodder. That's the stuff. That's the little script writing days of our lives drama. Look at who's running things. Look at what they want. What is the object of their affection? What do they really want to have happen? Why did they suddenly strike Iran? What's going on there? Do we own their government? Okay. I think we do. I think we know exactly play by play what's happening over there. And I don't think we ever lost control from the Shah days and from putting in Khomeini. I think that we still run it to this day. And I don't want to sound like a broken record either, because I don't want to say the same thing every day. But I see people on Facebook that I think are really smart. And it's like, and then he said this. What do you think of Trump now? I'm like, it's not about him. It's like you're talking about a player in a wrestling match where the outcome has already been established. They're setting up Vance to come in. Okay. They're setting up Vance to come in. That's why he's everywhere. We're so being played in this, but we don't see ourselves being played emotionally. It's like it's as if everyone's talking about Days of Our Lives, the characters of Days of Our Lives, as if it's real. That's our situation right now. So everyone gets on Facebook. Can you believe that she said this to him and then he did this to her? And everyone is debating it as if it's this reality. And it's not. This is just fodder. It's fodder to keep us distracted and not seeing who's in charge. Okay? Trump doesn't run anything. Biden didn't run a thing. Okay? Obama didn't run anything. Bush didn't run anything. Okay. Papa Bush, maybe. Clinton did not run anything. Reagan did not run anything. Jimmy Carter did not run anything. Nixon didn't run anything. They were told what to do. And they took those orders. And those orders came from the groups that tell them what to do. Okay. From the think tanks, from the groups that actually design everything. They design our foreign policy. They design everything. Those groups of people that sit behind, okay, that are associated with BlackRock, that are associated with all of this stuff, are the ones running the show. And we're all debating the Days of Our Lives characters as if they really do live in this little city and as if they really are acting out this drama. It's central casting. It's central casting. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once now you see wrestling, right? You can't unsee wrestling now. You just can't. You can't, because there's no way to unsee truth. You can't unsee it. Okay. So I think that's the hardest part of all this is, and why my show will always be to a minority of people, because they can't let people say these things. Think about it. On the right, people don't say these things ever. On our right, they never say them. Okay, caller, go right ahead. You're live.
No, Kate, you're
Hi.
so right. You know, Trump, when he said the thing about the wrestling, don't forget he's in the Wrestling Hall of Fame for, I don't know if you've seen that clip of him actually being a wrestler. It's such a joke.
Yeah.
And he's an actor just like Reagan. His IMDb page is pages and pages long. He's got his own little pentagram and a circle on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. I mean, it's a joke.
Well, I mean, it's just so not about him. I mean, it's you know, it's the characters of the president and congressmen and those and everything. I think is very, very by design. I think it's designed. I think it's they want certain outcomes, but they just don't want us to connect those outcomes. And so it's like we're debating a soap opera every day.
Yes, I always say the same thing. People can't see the forest through the trees. They've got us working in these little details constantly. And it's like, you know, like you said, once you see the whole picture,
you can't unsee
you see what they're doing. It's so obvious. Yeah, you can't unsee it, nor would you want to.
Yes, I so agree. Thank you. I love the phone call. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, somebody made a comment. Pedro, God cares and he does tell the truth. Yes, 100%. I agree with you. God cares. You know, God is powerful. God is real. The government, it has become a show. It has become a show. And no, I don't think anyone should have immunity. I think that that people that know what they're doing in government should be held accountable. There are the stupid people that are bought, that don't want to ask questions and will go along for the outcome of profit and power. They should be held accountable too, because they're in that position. But look, it's all about identifying who it really is. And when we talk about who it really is, it's kind of like this guy in the Newsbenders clip. You know, the world is really run by 6 cities. The world is run by a pretty small group. When you look at the populace, it's a pretty small group of people. But they would never be the ones out there showing themselves, right? So what do? What would if you were the deep state? What would you do? Maybe this is a better way to talk about it. If you were the deep state, wouldn't you sort of take the power away from the president and Congress and the Senate and the judges? Wouldn't you then design a system where you could call the moves and do the things, but have these people out there sort of as fodder for media and for the people of the United States to sort of argue about? Wouldn't you sort of take away the power for yourself, but make it look like somebody else is doing it? I would think you could be really efficient as a deep state if you had everybody arguing over what Trump tweeted rather than identifying the fact that there is a bigger plan going on right now with this Iran thing. Okay. There's some land grabs going on, and they're lying to us by telling us that the Strait of Hormuz is a do or die situation. Okay. Europe gets zero oil out of there. Why are their prices sky high? Why is Germany at $11 a gallon? Okay. So there's no reason for it. Why is our gas so high? There's no reason for it. 10% out of the Strait? Are you kidding me? And we're jacking up all the prices all over the country. And we're pretending that we're in a crisis and that this is now going to get into even higher food prices for us and shortages. And it will be explained by the Strait. It's comical. It's comical that we believe it. Not that they're saying it. I expect them to say it. I expect them to lie to you. I expect the government and the media who work together to lie to you. Okay? The Strait affects prices globally. That's what they want you to think. All right? That's what they want you to think. Not everything comes from the Strait. They did this in the 70s. They lied to us about an oil crisis. Straight up lie. And told us that we just basically didn't have any resources here. Why are we exporting our gas here? Our oil here, huh? So they want to pretend that everything's out of the Strait. Yes. It's not. But they do want you to believe it. That way you have a reason for everything that's happening to you right now. So, yet mine is a lack of basic knowledge. No, it's not actually. I study quite a bit. A lot of lies are told. Go back to the 70s. There's lots of lies there. You can figure out how the oil crisis got lied about clear back in the 70s. All right. So, you know, I play this Newsbenders clip today because this was such an interesting show in the UK. They pulled it after one season, and it said so much about the fear factor and how we are always made afraid, and how they utilize that fear against us, and how so many things that we think are real aren't. Go back and watch it. It'll be good. But above that, because I know you're going to understand that that we are being brainwashed, I do want you to understand that the movie The Great Awakening, if you can see that, please go to the theater and support it. If you get it in your area. It's very limited release, but it will be on video. Okay. It will be on video. So therefore, I would say, please, get there, watch it with family and friends, especially right now with the 250 celebrations that are going across the country. You're going to see a lot of people that basically are going to be celebrating the Constitution, but don't understand the Constitution. They want you to celebrate it and act like everyone's a patriot, but that's not the case at all. And unfortunately for us, we just have a really hard time seeing it. Brainwashing is real. It's been going on a long time. And in this Newsbenders clip, it's been going on since the mid 1940s to the extent that we have now, like on steroids. So it was going up until then. But then 1945 hit and just on steroids, everything went on steroids. So I do agree that people do need to understand who's at the helm. And if more and more people understood who was at the helm, and they understood that protests were bought and paid for, and that we have a huge corrosive government made up of over 40 million people going all the way down to local. That's how many people work for the government in some capacity, and how it has penetrated our thoughts, our perspective, our education, our view of America. And it's just, if you go back to the writings of the founders and you read the Federalist Papers and the Anti-Federalist Papers, you'll really understand the Constitution. And they fought over it. So when I say, no, we have to have unity and it's all nicey nice and kind. Oh, we can't say a thing about anybody in public office because they're trying. I just want to punch somebody. Yeah, that's not how the founders viewed it. No, the founders got up and really argued about things because, they were arguing for liberty. They were making sure that all viewpoints were heard. And boy, it got bad. It got nasty, right? Because they were fighting for something. They're not fighting for anything anymore. That's why they want you to be nicey nice and kind, and don't say a word about anyone's record. Don't bring to light. Don't whistle blow. Don't say anything. That's mean. I hear that a lot. That's mean. Is it? You're in a position of public trust. Shouldn't you be saying that all the time? I would think you would want people to know when somebody is abusing your tax dollars and abusing the role that they were given in government. I would think that you'd want that to happen. So, but no, that's not true at all. In fact, people usually get mad at the whistleblowers. And I know because I've been on the receiving end of that a lot. So the whistleblowers get the heat because you can't upset the apple cart. There are a lot of really idiotic people out there who love the apple cart. They just like it to stay status quo. And in their mind, their reality is, I just want to know people are good and people are helping. There's a way to find out if that's true. Do you want to know the truth? That's really what people should want to know. By the way, Mel Madison is coming on next week. He'll talk about the economy, and hopefully we'll get Suzanne on this week or next. And of course, Chris Ann Hall will be visiting us again, especially right now while we're celebrating the 250th birthday. And of course, go see the movie The Great Awakening, or buy it. When it comes out, please find it and buy it and watch it over and over again. It is truly, you'll walk out, it's all about God. And truly, you'll walk out feeling like you can do something. And the thing that you need to do doesn't have to be huge, but you can affect what's happening. And we can maybe have people less brainwashed in the future. By the way, go to cardiomiracle.com. This is the supplement I wish I'd been taking this whole time. When I found it, I realized that it had so many times more of the fruits and vegetables than any other product like it. And I was like, why did I not know this? I take 2 doses a day. Cardio Miracle delivers the nitric oxide to your system that you need, and helps with stress. It can help you lose weight, because with me, I sip on it all day. I do it in the morning and then sip on it all day, and it actually keeps me full. But those fruits and vegetables are going right into your body. Okay. Also, check out the expose I did on the beginning of disease and how we were lied to in the late 1800s, by the way. You need to check that out. I did a show on it. It's on YouTube, it's on X, and it's on Rumble. And it's all about the lies that they told us when they did their studies on diseases that hadn't even shown up yet and that didn't show up for yet another 50 years. go check that out. Also, go to mypillow.com. Code word is Kate. They have fantastic bedding. It makes for great presents, graduation, weddings, all kinds of things. If you do that and use the code Kate, at least I know that, you're going to get a great discount. But you're also getting it for super cheap right now because he's doing a huge blowout right now. He always does in the spring, and it's happening right now at mypillow.com. Use the code word Kate. Cardiomiracle.com/Kate. Order up, try it. It has a 30-day guarantee. And plus you're helping me stay on the air, which is great. And then also get the ebook. The ebook is vital. It's very, very important. This ebook, I can't stress this enough. If you want to deal with cancer, I have to be careful how I say this because of YouTube. If you want to deal with cancer without pharma and what they're going to give you, go get the ebook. Okay, it's at katetalks.myshopify.com. The link is right on my website, katedalleyradio.com. Click on it and buy it. Okay, this guide is amazing. This came after over 100 interviews with the most amazing holistic doctors. It came as a product over years of research and study, and it was what works and what doesn't. Okay, what works and what's snake oil. All right. So I know you don't have time when you get a diagnosis. It also serves as preventative too. But when you get a diagnosis, you don't have time to sit there and try every single product that people are going to bring to your doorstep. You just don't have time for it. And you don't know what works and what doesn't. And sometimes when you try a multitude of products, because they don't work, you get really disillusioned. And there are things that are working right now. I'm seeing it with my own eyes. Friend of mine, really good friend of mine, and people not resorting to chemo and actually coming out of it healthier. So, can you deal? I'll use that word. Can you deal with cancer without pharma? Oh, please, yes. Please do it. Please go look at this book. At least give it a read. And it's only about 15 pages, because it's dialed down to exactly what to do, who to listen to, who not to. It's awesome. And who to go to. Yeah. Who I trust. So check that out at katetalks.myshopify.com, and you'll be so happy you have this information. And it's updated all the time, so you get the updated version of it too. That's always sent to you by email as well. So I really appreciate you tuning in. Go to katedalleyradio.com. I do need help staying on the air. It's gotten really fierce and really hard to do this. So yes, I will get in touch with Ben. Thank you very much, Angel. And please support this show. I'm one of the very few that's not bought, so please support it. Thank you for that, and really appreciate all those that have helped. You know who you are. Thank you so much. It means everything to me. All right? Everything to me. And I thank you for tuning in and listening today. Share this with a friend, and I'll be back tomorrow.